Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee meeting of the 1st of November. I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and their elders past, present and emerging. I declare this meeting open at 9 a.m. and I'd like to advise attendees in the room that this meeting is being webcasted and audio recorded. I remind attendees to practice social distancing and take the necessary safety precautions. As today's agenda does contain a confidential report, I note that the proposed motion to suspend section 7.11A6 of the Local Government and Committee Meeting Code for the purposes of audio recording the closed sessions in today's meeting for Council's internal confidential use is now displaying on the screen behind me. Can I please have someone move that? Thank you, Councillor Stemp, seconded by Councillor Russell. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We don't have any leaves of absence to declare, and so we'll get stuck straight into the first report, which is item 4.1, the draft Queensland Organic Strategy 2022 to 2032. Before I let Michael Asnikar, the Health, Environment and Waste Manager, speak to his report, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they would like to declare at this time? They're being done. Take it away, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Morning, everybody. The Queensland Government has recently released its draft organic strategy for public feedback. From a local government perspective, food organics and garden organics, which is called FOGO for short, represents around 50% of the contents of a typical household landfill bin. Therefore, FOGO presents the greatest opportunity to reduce the volume of waste to landfill from households. Rather than being landfilled, food and garden waste can of course be composted and turned into a soil conditioner either at home or through a dedicated collection of FOGO by local governments. Since Council introduced its opt-in green waste bin service for garden waste in July, over 11,000 residents have opted for this service, which is nearly a 10% uptake. And to date, it's diverted over 1,000 tonnes of garden waste away from landfill. So this is a good foundation upon which to start mapping out what a transition to a future food and garden bin collection system may look like, not just in Logan, but more broadly across SEQ over the coming years. One bin for FOGO, one bin for recycling and one bin for residual waste. Introducing FOGO, however, will come at an additional cost and it will require significant behaviour change by residents, greater awareness and proper participation, of course, to reduce any contamination. So against that background, the draft organics strategy does provide a high-level framework to address the key issue of organics being disposed of to landfill. The Covering Council report provides proposed feedback to the 4 questions posed by the state government. In summary, however, the critical phase of this strategy will come during the development of the associated implementation plan, which will need to clearly detail the roles, responsibility and funding required by all levels of government to deliver on the organic waste diversion outcomes sought over the coming years to meet the state government's waste targets.
Thank you, Michael. Do we have any questions? No? Would someone like to move the... Oh, sorry. Behind Mr Mayor's head there, Councillor Bradley.
Thank you, through the chair. Mr Asnikar, can I just ask a question? At the LGOQ conference, there was a council, and I cannot for the life of me think which council it is now, up north that have been trialling these bins. Actually, no, I just remembered it was Ipswich Council. And the FOGO waste was put into the recycling bin from memory. Would that be an opportunity down the track for our council?
So through you, Chair, there are currently 4 councils in Queensland undertaking FOGO trials, each rolling out about 200 to 300 bins, residents participating. Ipswich, Lockyer Valley, Rockhampton and Townsville. They don't put the food and garden waste into the yellow lidded recycling bins. There are some councils who are inviting residents to put food waste into already provided green waste bins, garden bins. So there are some councils doing that, and then there are other councils that have actually rolled out the third dedicated bin where those particular residents don't have the third bin at the moment. But certainly not in the yellow recycling bins, no way, no.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering, in the back of this it says consultation participants. I'll show you here. It doesn't have us in there. Are we a consultation participant, or are we just someone watching everyone surrounding us doing all this stuff?
So through you, Chair, the local government's interests have been represented through the LGAQ, through the development of this draft strategy. Now all local governments have the opportunity to provide their council-specific feedback.
Just in there though, we weren't listed.
No, Logan City Council not specifically, but Local Government Association of Queensland is listed in there, like I said, to develop the draft, and now all councils have an opportunity to provide their specific feedback.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser. Any further questions? There being none, would somebody like to move the report? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. Would someone like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Hall. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, that is the end of the manager's reports. Do you have any general business for Michael? Michael, do you have any general business for us? Thank you very much. Back to work with you. Councillors, we'll now move on to item 5.1, which is the report for the Facade Improvement Program. While we wait for the Economic Development and Strategy Manager, Mr. David Radich, to come into the room, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare at this time? There being none, we'll wait for Dave to take his seat and he can start telling us how awesome this is. Morning, Dave. You'll have to forgive me, I forgot the name of your sidekick. Paul. G'day, Paul. How you going? Alrighty, Dave. Ready for you to speak to your report.
Through the chair, today we're introducing a new incentive policy to the city. So the intent of this incentive policy is to revitalise our local and neighbourhood centres. Some of them around the city are quite tired, and it would be great to inject some new life into some of those. So we have an incentive, it's called the Facade Improvement Program, proposed today. It was part of the council budget, and it has $90,000 over 2 financial years for people to apply and receive funding. The guidelines are in the document. It talks about what you can and can't fund through this program. I guess overall, when we did our 6 city centre summits, that was a really hard thing to say, there was a real desire from the community to not have to travel to Brisbane and Gold Coast or even some of the major centres to enjoy hospitality. So this fund is aimed at revitalising some of the smaller centres. So we might see some of those neighbourhood centres have new cafes or breweries or wine bars, and really to improve the amenity of the area so people are proud of their local centre or their neighbourhood centre, and they don't have to travel far and wide to enjoy a hot cup of coffee or a cold drink in the afternoon. So this complies with some of your corporate plan priorities, particularly the nighttime economy, where it really looks to revitalise some of the areas in Logan to ensure that there is appropriate investment and people can get a coffee after 3 o'clock or have a beer after 3 o'clock. So the program itself is over 2 years. We'll report back to council on the success of the program. The highest amount that a eligible applicant can receive is $5,000, but that doesn't mean that they can't spend more on the improvements of their facade. So happy to take any questions, councillors.
Any questions on this one, councillors? Councillor Heremiah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I read about the Facade Improvement Program, it got me quite excited. because I think it will help the nighttime economy, as you've mentioned, but I think it will also help the daytime economy. It reminded me of what New York City Council did quite a few decades ago when it approached an issue to do with socioeconomic and crime in their city, and they said that what the city looks like affects people's behaviour, it affects safety, it affects a lot. It's far more than just a pretty building. It's about your pride in your community. So when I heard that council was considering introducing this program, it put a smile on my face, because I know how people in my community value their streets, and hopefully we can start to see that across the city. What weighed up in my mind was, will this $90,000 over 2 years really make a difference? It costs a lot to put a facade on any sort of building, let alone retrofitting those neighbourhood centres. So I think this $90,000 will be a great opportunity to put it out there, give it a go for 2 years, and if the evidence comes back that it's working and that this is a good use of ratepayer funds, I would love to see this scaled up in years to come to get some real monumental change in our city. I did want to ask, how are we planning to prove that measure that this $90,000 is making a difference in different communities? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So through the chair, this is a pilot over 2 years, so we will be looking to see what the market responds when we do some campaign. We're going to undertake a marketing campaign of this incentive. Paul's been working hard on making sure that this policy has all the best bits of all the other city council policies. So we've stolen a little bit from Brisbane, stolen a little bit from Ipswich, and we've stolen a little bit from Newcastle to make sure this policy is a real functional one. We'll report back to council on the success of it. And then I guess ultimately, if it is highly successful, that may be something that council considers long term.
Thank you, Councillor Harrimeyer. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you. Through the chair, Dave, I look forward to the outcomes of this, and like Jacob has said, it will certainly address some of the issues in those city centres, and I'm quite happy to move this report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Kransky, was that a question or looking a second? Fantastic. This report has been... Councillor Russell, you got a question?
Sorry, I left that a bit late. Could I just, following in from Councillor Harrimeyer's questions, will there be criteria that sort of dip into the, crime and as well as business outcomes and the more obvious ones? Like, will there be some criteria that will help us to be able to prove that this helps with the safety and...
Through the chair, certainly. So we have $90,000 over 2 financial years, but we expect there to be a lot of applications. So $5,000 divided by $90,000 is not that many people that would receive it. So we'll be looking for the highest and best outcomes for the city. And again, it is a pilot, so we will come back to council with the results of it, but it's certainly something that will help, like Councillor Harrimeyer has said, improve the pride of areas, local centres, but also improve the safety of those local centres.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. The motion on the screen has been moved by Councillor Murphy and seconded by Councillor Kransky. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. The next report is item 5.2, which is the Mayor's Local Jobs and Skills Task Force. Before I let Dave speak to his report, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they'd like to declare on this item? There being none, off you go, Dave.
Through the chair, so the Mayor has asked us to step into a space where economic development teams often haven't stepped in, so that's the employment services area. We've worked with the Mayor and Bridget and Dave Hanson over the last 3 months to put a bit of governance around what the Mayor's task force will be doing, and to put it in a really simple explanation. What we're doing is we're bridging the gap between people that have jobs and people that want jobs. And that gap, and that bridge has been severed for a number of years through some really unfortunate situations that employers have found themselves in, where they've reached out to employment agencies and they've given them people that weren't suitable for the role. So what we're looking to do as part of the Mayor's task force is really listen and hear what the employers want, what skills they want, hard and soft skills. Maybe you need a forklift ticket and you need to know that you need to turn up to work on time. So hard and soft skills, and then matching them with the training program. Not only is that part of the task force, but we're also supercharging the Logan Jobs platform. We've already created a youth landing page for that platform, so people can find pathways to employment. It was an initiative led by the Mayor, so I'd like to hand over to the Mayor to speak to that.
Thanks for that, Dave. I'll run the meeting, you do the talking. Mr. Mayor, and then Councillor Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is that working? Yep. Councillors, as you know, as a councillor, I'm pretty cautious about how we spend money. Always have been. And I wouldn't be taking this on lightly unless there was a real need. You've probably read the report indicating unemployment's going out. I'm a little bit concerned about what's happened. Well, I'll express it a little bit more than that. I am really concerned that unemployment is actually going down in Queensland. It's going up in Logan. Now, I can't explain that because I've never seen so much development happening in Logan before. The other week I was out at the McNab site, out at Crestmead. It was absolutely massive. Interesting thing was I went out with the foreman, and he's saying, "Oh, I've got all local companies on board." They're mainly from Brisbane. So, you know, we can create a lot of things in our city, but what's not happening is our unemployment's going down. It's actually going up. John and I, Councillor Raven and I, we went out to a number of forums with the Treasurer and met with some very senior business people in the city running very successful operations. And they were saying how hard it is to actually get local people, which was interesting because then I went out and saw the federal member for Ford, Mr. Bert Van Manen, and he was saying that a number of businesses had contacted him and they were having trouble employing local residents. So this is obviously about connecting the dots, about establishing what our businesses want and connecting them with people in our community who are unemployed. Bentley Steel Fabrications are a typical example of that, where you've got a company that's on the move upwards, has a need. We identify obviously people for the TAFE courses and that sort of thing, and we make it happen. Now, I'm not saying that this won't generate into something bigger, because it probably will. But we definitely need it. Now, unemployment is sort of, it's a secondary, I believe it's a secondary nature of council. Obviously, roads, rates and rubbish, your sewage, your water, everything like that is your primary. But unemployment is a huge issue for our city, because when you have unemployment, you have other issues. You have social issues, you have house price issues, there's all these follow-on social issues. And we need to identify that as an issue, and obviously we need to look like we're doing something about it. I'm prepared to put my name up on this to push it along and make sure it works, because we need to be seen to be doing something, and I think this is something we can cut our teeth on, and maybe it'll open up further on this. I would expect it will, but at this time I'm happy with what we've got in front of us, and yeah, we've got to do something. It's urgent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Lane, Councillor Stem, and then myself.
Thanks very much through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Radich,
I really love Logan jobs. Every time a job comes up that has reasonable expectations and is close and not having to have public transport, I share it on my Facebook page, and it's probably one of the most shared things that comes across. I'm really pleased that you're extending that down to the youth and having a separate arm for them. Is there a reporting mechanism by which you can find out how many jobs were sourced locally as a result of this Facebook post? As in, do you go back to the employers and say to them, did you get a local person, or did you get someone from the Gold Coast or Ipswich or what have you? Is there a way to report back on that?
Through the chair, there will be, so we can use some analytics behind Logan jobs to report on whether they were actual local people that were employed in those local jobs.
Yeah, I think it's really well done. It's easy to access, and I haven't had a single report of someone saying, I can't get on and apply for a job. So congratulations to your team and to the Mayor. You've done a cracking job with this, and hopefully with that expansion of it, that would be fantastic. The biggest unemployed group, but probably the most skilled and knowledgeable, are 55s to 65-year-old males in particular. And is there a way that we can actually target them in some of this? Is there a way that we can get out to the community and say, this is a specific age group and our employers want you?
Through the chair, so as part of one of the first tasks of the Mayor's task force is to produce a jobs plan. So that will identify those things. So people of a certain age bracket that have a whole series of skills but for some reason aren't getting roles within the city. I was speaking to Councillor Stemp about this last Friday. So Bunnings has a program where they employ mature aged people. Maybe we can talk to some of their employment people to see what they're doing to make that work, because it's not just the youth, it's the elder people that have a vast knowledge of skills.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Stem.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, reiterating what Councillor Lane said in relation to the seniors, I guess, would there be an opportunity as part of this task force to talk to each of the councillors just to get a bit of a snapshot of what's sort of happening in their local community? Because I guess there would be a variation across the city, and there's certain things that I hear from businesses and obviously hear from parents and so forth about their kids, you know, and where the struggles are. So will there be that opportunity along the line?
Through the chair, most definitely. So that will all that intel, and the councillors on the ground intel is highly valuable, will be what will inform the jobs plan.
Thank you, Councillor Stemp. I just wanted to echo the words of the Mayor. We go to employment forums, we go to economic development forums, and all we hear from businesses that are expanding, they've been agile, and they're expanding in the wake of COVID, is that they don't have enough staff. And when you think of people as an asset, it's a supply chain issue where they know that there's people out there who want work. The job seeker networks are failing to produce job-ready staff because the job seeker networks are often focused on the highest value employee for them rather than trying to find the right fit for the employer that they're servicing. And this program is designed to bridge that gap, to actually target those opportunities where we can talk to someone like Beanling Steel, say, what do you need? And they say, we need these tickets, but we also need someone who's, as Dave said, who has the soft skills, who's got good customer service, who knows that showing up 5 minutes early is the difference between having a good day and a hard day, who will do an extra shift when they're asked to because they can and they know that the business is busy and they need it. And those little things that people take for granted are skills that aren't necessarily in the workforce by default for whatever reason, and we want to try and bridge those gaps. When I was at LJQ conference last week, I was talking to our neighbouring councils, and they need our community to work in their jobs. Mayor Williams explicitly said she wants people from Logan to get employment in her city because she needs the service, her community needs services, our community needs work. She wants them to go there, and I'm happy for them to earn money somewhere else and bring it back home and spend it in the local economy. I think that's a win-win for us. So hopefully this opportunity won't just create people who are job ready for jobs in Logan, but will create people who are job ready for jobs anywhere in the region, so that they can enjoy the benefits of work, the pride that comes from having a job and the satisfaction of contributing to the community and being able to do a hard day's work for a good day's pay and come home and reap those benefits. If there's no further questions on this one, I'll let the Mayor move the report.
I just want to make a statement. The unemployment figures are quite some time behind. So if you recall, so what we've got here is the last ones in the report is the March quarter. So what I'm suggesting is that there'll probably be a drop in unemployment in the next quarter that we get, because I believe that the federal government's handout stopped sometime in that area. I'm expecting unemployment to lower. I don't want to paint such a bleak picture of Logan, because I think it's an unnatural figure, but at the same time, we have to prepare for anything, so that's where we're at.
The Mayor has moved the report. Would anyone like to second it? Thank you, Councillor Heremiah. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillors, that brings us to the end of the Economic Development and Strategy Manager's reports. Do you have any general business for Dave? Dave, do you have any general business for us? No? Excellent. Thank you very much. Oh, and no, you're right, Dave. As there's been no reports for the Development Assessment Manager, does anyone have any general business that they'd like to ask the Director in his absence? Yes, Councillor Bradley? Oh, look, Stephen's here. You can ask him directly. Thanks, Stephen. Sorry.
Thank you, through the chair. Good morning. I can hardly see you. I'm just curious. We've had some emails backwards and forwards about a few developments. Do I need a council resolution to bring any of those development assessments up for council, or will they automatically be done?
Through the chair, I'm happy to bring those up without the resolution.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bradley. Stephen, do you have any GB for us?
No, I don't.
Awesome. Any further GB for the Development Assessment Manager? No? Thanks, mate. Fast game's a good game. Thank you very much, Director Hanson. We'll now bring in Dr. Scott Burke to address item 6.1, which is a confidential report for the proposed projects for the local roads and community infrastructure program. But while we wait for Dr. Scott and his team to come in, do any councillors have any conflicts of interest they would like to declare on this report? There being none, I note that an additional supporting attachment has been presented for the committee's consideration for this report. This document related to the guidelines for the COVID-19 local roads and community infrastructure program. I need this document to be tabled so we can consider it. Would someone like to move that, please? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. As it's a procedural motion, I need no seconder, but I do need a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. The document has now been tabled. Councillors, I note that this report is considered necessary to take into a closed session as the confidential attachments contain information in relation to potential projects that may be funded at the discretion of the Commonwealth Government and the local government and will have an impact on the local government's budget. Do any councillors wish to move into a closed session for this item? Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Would someone like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Stemp. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously with the exception of Councillor Lane. How would you like to vote?
Against.
Councillor Lane has voted against the motion. The motion is carried nonetheless. Councillors will now move into a closed session. Please be advised that the meeting will now move into confidential session and the live streaming of the meeting will be suspended, but the meeting itself will be audio recorded for internal use only. Councillors, we are now in open session. Thank you very much to those patiently watching at home while we debated that matter. Councillors, there is a motion on the screen deferring to ordinary council to make sure that ancillary paperwork can be done between now and next Wednesday. Can someone please move the matter on the board? Thank you, Councillor Bennon, seconded by Councillor Russell. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has been carried unanimously. The motion is carried. Councillors, that is the only report for the ICT Directorate. Do you have any general business for Kirsten or Dr. Scott? Dr. Scott, do you have any general business for us?
I do not, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, councillors. That brings us to the end of the City Planning, Economic Development and Environment Committee. The next committee, the City Infrastructure Committee, will begin at 11:20. The time is now 11:10. Thank you and good night.